Hey everyone, what is up? So happy to have you on this amazing Sunday night, and can't wait to see what this week has to bring for all of you. Let me know how it's going on Instagram here in the comments. Kessel Runner, yeah, all good, buddy. Um, no worries, you can always go back and rewatch it. And Crazy Comics, it looks like we already have a fan of Bishop Q in the house. And hey, COALSACK, welcome to the lounge. And I guess that kind of introduces this awesome duo. How's it going?
Hey guys, how are you that side?
Hello.
It's going good. So, Cape Town, South Africa. It's 5 a.m. over there right now.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And you decided I'm going to wake up early and get on a live stream on YouTube and talk about a comic.
That's part of our life.
That's dedication, I got to say.
How's it going your side?
It's going good. Can't complain. We're just about to go to bed over here once we're done having this awesome conversation. We've been talking about this for almost a month now, and I'm so glad that you guys reached out to me because once I read Bishop Q, I was so enthralled with it. I was ready to read the next issue. That first issue was just very well done. The artwork, the medium that you guys chose, and the storyline was just amazing. I was very enthralled by that first issue.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Glad
Thank you
enjoyed
very
it.
much. Yeah.
We are getting a lot of requests for issue 2 right now.
So one of the things that I always ask when I'm talking with a small company who puts out comics is how long did it take to put out that first issue?
So in terms of the writing, the written up to about issue 8 right now. And so that was probably between 2018 and 2019. And then when we started, it was probably October 2020, and I think we finalized it, like completely finalized it, January or February 2021.
So this has been in the works for almost 4 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
pretty much.
been
That's
quite
awesome.
yeah. Because I mean we had to change a lot of covers. There's been a lot of changes, a lot of editing, trying to find the right illustrator, and yeah, I guess eventually we just came together.
Yeah.
That's awesome. It came together beautifully, to say the least. Where did this idea come from? Like, who came up with it? Who was it? A team effort for the idea, or did one of you present it to the other? How'd that work?
So we we do a lot of we've been doing this since like 2018 in terms of just comic strips and different kind of short comics. So this concept essentially is something that I came up with a long time ago in terms of the character Bishop Q, but in terms of the writing and the development, we came together and then discussed it, and then just started writing, and this is where we are now. Yeah.
Very
So
cool.
So we collaborate a lot on a lot of things, and we're both writers. So depending on whose idea or who's driving it creatively, then it will depend on who's writing. But this one in particular, I wrote it.
Okay. So you guys are both writers. Where do you guys get a lot of ideas from? Like when does inspiration typically strike?
Or to be quite honest, we get inspiration from different things. I think our first comic was called Clash of the MCs, which we are also partners in life, husband and wife. So we just went to this battle rap, and we liked the rap battles, and we started writing comics on battle rap that take place in Cape Town. And the first one, the idea that we had first was a comic around cannabis, because that time I was a cannabis writer, a freelance writer. And we actually draw ideas from different things.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So Bishop Q in particular, it's not anybody in particular, but the different people and depending on the character that influence it the character development, and it's close to my story in terms of like having grown up in Maseru, Lesotho, moved to Johannesburg, and then eventually moved to Cape Town. So Bishop Q's journey is sort of linked to that, but I wouldn't say it's based on me, but that maybe is the base, and then I use different characters and people that have ran into in my life and
Very cool.
stories. Yeah.
I mean, we do address a lot of issues that happen in Africa, whether it's mining, you've probably picked that up, violence in Africa, and family dynamics. So,
Friendship, choices, decisions,
yeah.
and migrant labor, and yeah, all sorts of issues that not necessarily captured in the first issue, but definitely will be captured in the further issues and in the universe, in the Star City universe, as we call it.
Very cool. I got to say, reading issue 1 was just very, like it was mind blowing, but I don't think that's the right word for what I'm trying to say. It was very like down to earth at the same time. Like it felt real. Like these characters felt like they're real people dealing with real issues, like you're saying. And I mean, it was just so interesting to kind of see that kind of play out in real life on a comic strip. And there's a lot of times where you're like, wow, this is just so far-fetched that there's no way this could ever happen. But this felt very grounded. It felt like it had planted its feet firmly while still attaching itself to something way beyond us. Because like the very first page, I had to reread it like 2 or 3 times. I'm like, wait, we're in the year, I think it was what, 3,000. Yeah. I was like, how are we jumping this far ahead? And this guy's talking about 2007. I need to go further into this. Like, it was amazing. Like right there, I was captured. I was like, how did he go from 2007 all the way to the year 3000? Like, what just happened to this man? And honestly, it's one of those things where it's like, as I was saying, like it felt very grounded throughout the whole comic. And then when it all of a sudden like completely changes, it was just, like I said, I need to pick up issue 2. This was phenomenally done and just a great opener to a phenomenal story.
Thank you
Very much, Chris.
Yeah. And obviously, the end of the issue sort of hints at how he ends up there, because obviously his powers allow him to sort of move around through time. So, and what we're going to do is that first page that you talked about, in every issue, we're going to touch on that. So it gives you a sort of insight into what's happening there. And then eventually the story will climax at that point.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah.
That's really awesome. It's always fun when a comic kind of like goes back and forth through time, because you really have to pay attention, number one, but also like the writing behind that, to be able to stay in the frame of mind to write something that's happening across a whole time, like a whole multiverse of just time differences, and not having it overlap in the artistry, and being able to really show, hey, right now we're in the year 3000, right now we're in the year 2007. That's tough. And I commend you for even wanting to attempt that, because I don't know if I could ever do it.
Yeah, there's a lot of timeline building. There's a lot of our other partner who couldn't be here. He's got in his stories, he's got a time scroll. So it's actually part of his, some of the things he uses to tease that you'll see if you follow our stuff, that he built a whole timeline of the books that he's written. And similar to that, we've got a timeline as to, to keep track of where everything is. Obviously, it might change here and there where it makes sense, but in terms of the foundation of the timeline, it's set up, and we know the skeleton of where everything happens.
Interesting. So my next question, and guys in the chat, if you guys want to ask them any questions, you're more than welcome to. As always, thank you for joining us in this live stream in the chat. My next question is, were you guys fans of comics before you started writing them, or did you kind of just say, okay, we have this story, I think it'd be really cool if we did it in a comic format?
Go first.
Yeah, no, we are fans of comics. Our whole house is actually full of comics. Yeah, but there aren't many African comics. There was one particularly Kwezi. Not sure if you're familiar with it. It's quite big in South Africa. That was the only African comic that stood out to us. Not saying that there aren't many other comics, but that was for me. And yeah, we've been fans. Yeah.
Yeah. So growing up, I used to read everything. I used to read books. I used to read comics, and I wouldn't limit myself to any kind of genre. Mostly fiction. I feel like nonfiction is for school and studying, but mostly fiction. And yeah, comics. Obviously, the Supermans and the X-Men's and the Batmans of the world, but also
Okay.
the different genre ones. I mean, I liked Archie comics. I liked Obelix. I liked Beano Comics is a British comic that used to come out as well. So anything I could pick up, I used to always read, and yeah, still read today because as as you get older, you discover that there were actually others that you missed. So yeah,
Oh yeah.
been avid comic reader for a very long time. I wouldn't say I'm the I know people in the world that are definitely more enthusiasts, but I try my best to be an enthusiast of the comic books. So yeah, so it was pretty easy for us to transition to that in
Very
terms
cool.
of the medium that we use to bring across these stories.
The only nonfiction I tend to read is pop culture history. I completely
Oh
agree with
wow.
you, Caden. So Alex, one of the loungers, asks, what or which authors inspired you both the most?
So in terms of authors in general, like I said, I read everything. I respect Stephen King's work ethic,
Okay.
and I've from a very long time I used to read his stuff. Another person whose work ethic I expect is James Patterson, in terms of just I think you can get, obviously there's a lot in between, but I think you can get two extremes of writers. You can get a George R. Martin who didn't finish the story, but is
Mm-hmm.
brilliant, it's good. And then you get a Stephen King who's also just as brilliant and good, but the work ethic, he really pushes his stuff. And
Yeah.
that's what they say a lot of times. They say it's not necessarily a matter of talent as much as it is putting your 10,000 hours and just keep writing or keep drawing if you're an illustrator. And that's what I like about them. But in terms of the content of what they write, I like as well. And then in the industry, Alan Moore, I really like his stuff.
Okay.
I also like his concept of he says, when he's a magician, he calls himself a magician, or he says he's a magician, and he says that what is magic? If there was nothing there and you create something from nothing, that is magic. And essentially, I like that philosophy. And Neil Gaiman as well. I'm discovering a lot of like the Sandman comics. And yeah, so in terms of the industry, those are probably the main two people that I can say I am influenced by, or I'm trying to be influenced by right now.
Oh, cool. Well, when it comes to me, so I'm in the educational industry as well. So my favorite writer right now is Zig Simda. I just love how he captures African stories into fiction and sometimes nonfiction, I believe. He
Okay.
just, he just goes across all the spectrums and literally doesn't miss anything that happens in the African culture. So he's pretty much my favorite writer and has been for a very long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. Ever since reading Great Gatsby, I was a huge fan of F. Scott Fitzgerald and all of his
Same.
works. And that's what actually kind of got me started in writing when I was in like high school, college time frame, just like short stories and stuff and whatnot. So I totally understand like the finding inspiration in different writers, because there's times where I'm like, oh, I can't write about this because I feel like I'm basically just copying this person and whatnot. And like, I don't want to take their idea. I want to come up with my own idea. So and that's one of the cool things about Bishop Q, getting back to that, is that Bishop Q feels totally different from anything I've read before. There's been times where like I'm reading a story and it's like, wow, this seems really like they pulled it out of this story and took it in a different direction. But Bishop Q really is an interesting story in the sense that he has powers. He travels through time, and yet he deals with some really real stuff. And I think one of the hardest things for me when I'm writing is the ending. What about for you guys? Like, what's that difficult part of a story that you guys not really struggle with, but kind of you have to think through it a little bit more? It doesn't always like fall onto the paper.
So when I'm talking work ethic, so the actual sitting down and start writing for me, I think is the hardest part. But once I'm in there, so I like to put little structures in my writing, the usual stuff like the plotting, the story plotting, beginning, middle, ending, and supporting stories, and along with that, tie in a lot of character development in terms of what is this character going to be going through in this issue and how they're going to resolve it. So I do have those sort of guidelines that I use to help me get through the process. But in terms of the hardest part, I'll probably say that is the actual sitting down the first time and saying, all right, let's sit down and let's write. But once I'm in there, I think I do it pretty okay.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then
Oh, well, I think I do agree with Chris when it comes to writing. I think just getting ideas for me is a lot easier, and just starting isn't much of a hassle. But in terms of ending, especially if I intend to carry on with whether it's the second issue or the third issue, I always want to end with a bang. I don't know if it makes sense, but I find that to be the most difficult. So I sometimes just give him my writings and be like, what do you think of this ending? And maybe can we change this to this or that? But yeah, the ending is a bit of a problem for me, or a challenge. Because starting and just developing on the story, I find that to be quite easy. I mean, with the research or any material that I'm adding to the story.
Very cool. So what kind of genre do you guys usually write outside of comics, just out of curiosity?
Genre or formats, or both?
Both.
So, look, I've been writing since primary school. I don't know what the equivalent is in your world, but I think hopefully you'll understand what I mean by junior school. And it's just like you said, it would be like short stories and that kind of thing. But for a very long time, I was actually writing music, like hip hop and that kind of thing. And in there's elements of storytelling in any particular track or song that you do. And I've always pretty sort of thought I'm a good storyteller in that. And yeah, I think that's the main one. And then just general, well, maybe not so much me, but journaling.
Yeah. So I was a journalist, probably still am a journalist. So I started off with political writing. Then I freelance and write for different brands. And now we own a publishing house in Lesotho as well. So I write and develop learning material from books, flashcards, posters, puzzles. So it's different things, but learning material in all. I develop a lot of that. That's where my last focus has been for the last 3 years or so. But before that, I was writing for freelancing for different brands. Then before that, I was writing for politics. I worked for, yeah.
Our other partner, he is the full-length novel writer.
Yeah.
He's got 6 or 7 books, talking 70,000 words. So he's a full-length author, and currently trying to convert book 1 of his series, which is it's werewolf based as dark fantasy, and trying to take that and convert it into a graphic novel. So that's the storyboarding we're busy with right now for that, along with his books, which also we're going to be such teasing at later in this year or early this year.
Very cool. That I've always been fascinated by werewolves. I think based on the lore that the werewolf follows, it completely changes up the story of the werewolf. Obviously, there's like you have your Twilight werewolves, you have your originals, Vampire Diaries style werewolf, and then you've got like that old school style. And there's even like that Harry Potter has like its own little twist on werewolves. And it's just so interesting how people can take that one concept and completely twist it and change it and whatnot, depending on their own viewpoint of where it all started and the lore behind it. And I feel like you have kind of answered this question. Do you try to incorporate some South African history in your storytelling? So you said you use more of like, you talk about like the modern struggles, the modern problems that South Africa and just Africa in general kind of faces, like mining and whatnot. Do you ever talk about like the history?
I think that is pretty much what we do. We do cover a lot of migrant labor, which there's much history on that. And I mean, we have spoken about violence in Africa as well. We don't just cover what's currently happening, but episodes or events that have taken place before. So yes, to answer the question, we do incorporate a lot of South African history in our storytelling.
Yeah, so there isn't an agenda per se in terms of that. So it's loosely based on history, and we are trying to sort of create new narratives and update narratives. And as much as those things are burning issues in the South Africa, they don't form or in Southern Africa or in Africa, they don't form a focal point of the story. They tie in with the story and make sense for that. And and as much as we would like to represent this huge continent, we do obviously concentrate on the part of the world that we're in, which is Southern Africa. And we do visit other parts of the world, but obviously you don't want to be ignorant and think you know what's happening somewhere else.
Yeah.
So yeah, so definitely plays a part, but it's not a focal point.
Yeah.
I totally get it. It's definitely because I mean, even I'm from New York. I've been born and raised in Western New York. And whenever I say I'm from New York, people think, "Oh, what part of New York City are you from?" It's like, no. I'm 8 hours away from there. So like I'm over by Niagara Falls and all of that fun stuff. And even then I'm an hour away from that. So I totally get it. Like there's things that happen where I'm from that might not be happening on like in Pennsylvania, like an hour away from here, 2 hours away from here. So I totally get like trying to cover that world viewpoint while still keeping it as local as possible, because you don't want to speak for someone else. You don't want it to be this overarching thing and upset someone, or not even just upset them, but kind of try to speak for them and not give them their own voice. And I feel like as authors, it's kind of an author's duty to really just have their own voice and use that for whatever they want to use it for. And I think you guys are doing a really great job, because your artwork and your imagery in the story itself kind of speaks for itself. And going off of that, where'd you guys get the kind of vision for that artwork from?
So in terms of that, obviously being in the industry, we sort of try and identify as many people in the industry, particularly illustrators, but also writers as well. Okay. And the guy we worked with, Sikans, he was pretty much already working with Palesa on some of the educational stuff she had mentioned. And what I particularly liked about him is that he does do other styles, but what I like about his style is that it really does sort of resonate with this part of the world, and it's not necessarily looking Japanese or even looking Western. It's really looking like Southern African kind of idiocracies in it, and it's always risky, particularly given what's popular at any given time. But I felt it was important that we find our own style that stands out on its own. I mean, the comics, Palis was talking earlier that there are comics on the continent, and there's a lot of comics, but there are only a few that stand out. And even those that stand out, I still feel like some of them pick up from other cultures of comics around the world. And for me, it was important to find somebody who could sort of pick up what little bit of comic culture has existed in this part of the world and bring it forth. And I think we were successful in doing that.
For sure. The artwork is definitely different than a lot of other stuff that I read and whatnot. But it's different in a really cool way, because you see that emotion. You see the differences in, like you're saying, in the world aspect. I don't want to read a story and tell this is from here, but I want to be able to read a story and say, wow, this work really matches with this story. And that's what I feel your artwork does.
Thank you. No, it really did work out for us in terms of that.
Yeah, he's really talented.
Is that your other partner?
No.
No, that's the illustrator.
That's the illustrator. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So us as partners were mostly writers. Our other partner is sometimes into design and graphic design and other stuff, but mostly in terms of the three partnership of COALSACK Media, it's writing brings us together, and the love for comics and graphic novels.
Yeah.
Very cool. So Max Comics asks, Max Comics asks, where can we find your music, COALSACK fam? The music you're writing.
The music, well, funny enough, the latest stuff I did was under the pseudonym Bishop Q.
Okay.
So there's some on Bandcamp. It's on the underground hip hop. So it's on there.
Very cool.
Yeah.
SoundCloud as well.
Yeah, SoundCloud as well. So
I've been trying to get him to put it on Apple Music for a long time.
We'd love to hear it.
Awesome. He wants to keep this underground. Yeah, but I mean, if you guys want to request any of the music, you can just email us and we can just share that with you. We're not selling it or anything like that.
Yeah. So the one on Bandcamp is called Bishop Q, and the name of the tape is Two Sides of Same Coin.
Yeah.
Wow, very cool. So you were also saying that one of your first comics was a rap battle comic?
Yeah.
So how did that work out? How did you, because I mean, like, a rap battle is very outward and it's emotion filled and it's like tone of voice. How did that work in a comic?
Yeah. So what we did was we attended the battles first of all, and we identified obviously the people that stood out for us, and then we Balisa would record
the recordings. Yeah.
So then we'd come back home and go through them, and the artist that we found understood the brief because he went very stylistic in terms of like almost like it was a rap battle, but it was also like a real battle of guys that when they hit the punchline, it creates a special effect. You
can see the crowd as well.
Yeah, see the crowd and stuff like that. And there's a subplot in there as well of people that come to watch the rap battles. So in there's some characters in there who actually just have opinions on what's happening in that part of the world. And yeah, so it was a cool experience, and I'm still very proud of the work we did there. We'll
very cool.
See if we can share some of those in the future.
Because when we first started off, we were under the name The Rap House and stuff. But I think once we transitioned to COALSACK Media, we just closed down the website as well, because all the comics were available on that website.
So but I'm sure we'll find a way of sharing with anybody who is interested in that.
It took a lot of hours. The whole recording, having to watch the recordings and writing the script, but that used to be fun.
It was fun.
It was fun.
I mean, this is fun. What we do is fun.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work, but it's fun.
You gotta love what you do, because if you don't love it, it's gonna turn into work, and then you're not gonna do it for very long. And I feel like that's one of the things that I have being a YouTuber. And I mean, I'm a teacher as my day job. I'm a YouTuber when I feel like being one, and every minute of every day I love teaching and I love doing this. So it's like I get to kind of be in both worlds, so to speak. And a lot of my students love that pop culture stuff, and I teach at the inner city school district, so a lot of them I can see loving Bishop Q because it is their real stuff. Them is really interesting, and they have rap battles. And as soon as you said that, I was like, I need to find that. That's really interesting. That's really cool.
No, definitely share that with you.
Yeah, we'll share with you.
We'll share that with you.
Yeah. I think another thing is that as much as earlier we were talking about, keeping it real to what you understand and what you identify with, what you've grown up with. I think what I do find is like Mindtown, which is where the first issue is based on Johannesburg. And I think a lot of urban sort of city living people would identify with Johannesburg as a city. It's huge, and it's not limited to any type of person in that, like, let's say New York City. It's different people coming from different parts of the world. And that's part of the stuff that we talk about in terms of like migrant labor and those interactions and identity issues and the pressures of peer pressure and the choices you have to make. And so while we try to stay true to what we know, I think a lot of people would be able to identify with the stories and the characters.
Very cool. So Max Comics, being a fellow artist, she'd love to see some of the art. So this is one of the first images that really kind of captured the feel and the imagery of Bishop Q. And I mean, it was just such an interesting scene and whatnot. And I just, it's so powerful. And Alex and I, we talk pretty much every Friday on our live stream. And we were saying, like, sometimes the most minimal of a background says, like, just tells so many different, it's so much worth more than 1,000 words when there's a minimal background, because you have to kind of fill in that background yourself, but also you're really drawn into the emotions of these characters. In that top right panel where his chin and his teeth, like, you can see the emotion in that. And it's amazing because being able to pull that out is just totally mind-blowing, in my opinion, especially not being an artist.
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah, the artist got the brief. He got the brief and he understood the brief. So that particular scene is actually a flashback scene. So obviously I told him, I was like, listen, I want this one to stand out on its own versus the rest of the comic, these flashback scenes. And black and white was what we eventually went with. And that particular scene is actually based on a real fight, not necessarily what that fight was about, but that actually did happen.
You want to elaborate more on that?
What the
fight? Yeah.
No, well, look, the real fight was, like I said, was totally about something else different. But in the comic, essentially, obviously, Bishop Q, the protagonist, and Maleven, the antagonist in issue 1, have known each other for a very long time, and this is probably like their third or fourth fight since they've known each other. And this one was a point that sort of, when I talk about choices and decisions, where a common friend of theirs had, something had happened to them, and now they were fighting about whose fault it was, and so it was, and that also is based on a true story about choices that we sometimes have to make in terms of our friends. So on any particular given night, your friend decides they're going to do something and you decide, no, I'm going to stay behind on this one. I don't want to, do this anymore. And eventually leads to this conflict between the two of them.
For sure. It's like each like little piece of text, every image in this. I read it 2 or 3 times just to make sure I didn't miss anything. And I don't do that with every comic. There's times where I'm like, you know what? This was a really great comic. It's just, it was a great read. I loved it, but I didn't need to go back and check out the details. This Bishop Q was just one of those books where I'm like, did I get everything? Did I understand everything that happened? And I feel like even on the 3rd time through, I was seeing stuff that I missed the first time, looking at images that I didn't even realize were there the first time through. And as a couple of the guys are saying in the chat, it does seem very tribal, aggressive, clean, chiseled. Like that artwork is just very well pronounced, and it's very interesting, the dynamic that the art brings to this story that has a good amount of dialogue, doesn't have too much, but I mean it's very emotional in the, like, it's a nice balance between the dialogue and the art, and you can see the emotion in both in each panel.
Thank you. Yeah. In terms of obviously having a personal like of certain comics, I've always been more dialogue driven.
Okay.
Maybe that's why I like Neil and Alan so much, because I know that they're real writers and they can write a prologue, they can write, so obviously I've got that at the back of my mind. But in terms of my main strength, I think, is dialogue and the interactions between characters.
Very cool. Yeah. So what can we expect from Bishop Q? When can we expect issue 2? And what can we expect in the next 2 to, I think you said there's going to be 8 issues of this?
8 issues written, but that will probably complete I would say part 1 or volume 1, so to speak. In terms of timing, so we're doing this out of our pockets, and obviously the business model obviously plays a part as well, and we're trying to, of course, fund these comics, but we're hoping later in the year we'll bring issue 2. But in the meantime, we are working on other stuff. There's another comic in the same universe called Tabotiba Tabang, which is targeted more at a younger audience. And like I said, Mukena, our 3rd partner, he's got a book that's coming, or books that are coming, and there's a graphic novel we're working on there as well. So ideally we would have liked to have a periodic, to say every 3 months, every 6 months, or every month, but until we get there, please just be patient with us. It's coming.
yeah
Hey, it's on your timetable, because I mean, we're ready. I'm ready. But honestly, I'm willing to wait. If it makes the end product that much better, I'm willing to wait for the end product, because if it's anything like issue 1 was, I know I'm going to be blown away by it. It was just a genuinely well-written piece of work. And as Cade said, make no mistake, dialogue is also an art form. Some dialogue can feel unnatural and forced at times. Yeah, this didn't feel that way at all. I never understood like what went into comics until I started this channel, and I realized that there was so much more than just putting speech bubbles to a character. It really, it truly is a form of art. Like there's comics out there that just don't do that well, and it's obvious. But this, like, it wasn't overdone. It wasn't like Bishop Q or any of the other characters had to say more than 3 words to show that emotion they were feeling. One of my favorite scenes was when they were fighting each other and he tells him to stay down. And then you just see a panel of him hitting him and he goes, I said stay down. And it's like you can feel that raw emotion, whether you relate it back to real life, movie, TV show that you've seen before where that scene's played out. But like you can feel the raw emotion in that scene with those very few words.
Yeah, I think definitely. I think there are two ways to approach dialogue. I think you want to keep it as natural as possible, but at the same time, in terms of any medium that you do dialogue, whether it's movies, whether it's books, whatever, you will have to add a sort of creative element to it, and sometimes that can seem as if it's a bit out there, but try to keep it as natural as possible. And I think dialogue is probably one of the best ways you can show not tell, as they say when you're writing, so well you can also have a character give away the whole story, but like you said, that's not something that works. I think what the best way is, as the story and as the character develops, what they say starts giving away what where the direction the story is going and what's happening, and not necessarily just a whole lot of dialogue giving away the entire story in one panel.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So do you guys have anything else you'd like to add before we sign off here? I feel like this has been really eye-opening and really just an amazing time having this awesome conversation. I can't wait until issue 2 comes out and we can do this again. And even before then or after then, whenever it ends up being, this has just been a really fun conversation. Anything else you want to add?
Do you want anything?
Oh, well, I guess just thank you, man, for the opportunity. And
Of course.
I love pages and channels like yours, and it's always interesting to get like somebody's input who is really an enthusiast, and that's what you are. And
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, look out for the space. Like we said, there are African comics out there. It's not just us, but we are really trying to build a foundation of storytelling and character development and identity and narratives that are unique to this part of the world. And please look out for us, COALSACK Media. We're on all platforms, and watch this space, and we'll be bringing you more stories.
Very cool. Do you guys have a GoFundMe or anything for issue 2 or anything like that?
Not as yet, but we're definitely going to be looking into that as well.
Yeah. Well, from my side, thank you very much for having us, Chris, and the audience for joining. It was actually fun to do this.
Doesn't feel like 5 a.m.
It doesn't feel like 5 a.m. Not at all. And I mean, I think from COALSACK Media, this year we'll probably be releasing 2 different books. One, as we mentioned, Tawatiwa Tabang, the comic, and then the second one might be a graphic novel from our partner.
Awesome.
He's obviously releasing a couple of novels, but we are looking into changing that into a graphic novel. That's what you've been working on. We'll definitely bring Bishop Q back very soon.
It's like I said, the story is ready. Up to issue 8. It's just a matter of just getting our business model right and making sure that we don't sacrifice our child's education money.
I get that. Last question for the night. I always love to ask this question. If any comic producer came to you today and said, "Hey, I want you to write this," what story would it be? What hero would it be? What
are they saying they want us to write this, or are you saying like what would be something that would be interested in.
So like they come to you and they say you can write
I think you
anything
froze
that
there
we
for a
have worked
second.
on, and you get to choose what you want to write. We love your style of writing. We want you to apply it to one of our characters. What character would you want to apply it to?
That's a good one. I think I'll probably go with some of my favorites in terms of like a Gambit from X-Men. I love
Okay.
Gambit. And funny enough, I don't know if I could do it, but somebody that I've always found gets a lot of slack is Superman, and it would be interesting to see if I could come up with anything new there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. Well, on my side, I really like addressing real issues, so I'll definitely be going with the Joker.
Ooh,
Yeah.
very
I mean,
cool.
we're just reading Marbles the other day. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the comic. It just touches on mental health.
Yeah.
It's quite cool. Yeah.
Very cool. I was not expecting that. That's so interesting. I love that answer. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Don. Go get some sleep. It's 5 a.m. there, almost 6 a.m. probably now. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it, and I can't wait to talk again.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We'll
Thank you.
definitely stay in touch and let you know what's happening. And yeah, thanks for the opportunity.
Definitely. I'd love to help you guys out any way I can. Thank you for coming on again, and it's been an absolute pleasure.
Before you go, so where can we find your writing?
So
Chris.
I only have one thing published. It actually got published because of this channel through Rogue Comics. It was a short story that I wrote, and I did an interview just like this, and he ended up putting it in one of his stories. It's
nice.
on Amazon, and I can send you a link to that. It's just a short
please
story,
do.
but
Yeah.
it's in there.
Yeah, would love to read that as well. Yeah.
Love short stories.
Of course.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank
All
you,
right,
man.
cheers. Thank
Have
you,
a good
Matt.
evening yourself.
Yeah.
Have a good one.
And thank you, everyone. Cheers. Bye.
All right. So that was COALSACK Media, an absolutely amazing husband-wife duo. As you can see, they are just amazing. They work together so well. And go check out Bishop Q. You can go find it on Amazon. If you would like to know the exact link, message me on Instagram. I'll send it to you. Genuinely just a wonderful comic and a wonderful couple working together to create some really cool content for people to read. And I can't wait to dive more into the Bishop Q storyline, because genuinely it's a really interesting story. The twist at the end of issue 1 that you're not expecting is just very well done. And again, thank you guys so much for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure. #Loungers Assemble. And as always, stay nerdy, comic fam. Go check out our merch. If you want the link to our merch, our Loungers Assemble hoodies, and then also our Stay Nerdy Comic Fam hoodies, it's teespring.com/stores/The Comics Lounge. Thank you for watching. It's been a pleasure. That was an absolutely amazing interview. Loved every minute of it. They are an amazing team, and I hope next time we get to meet their other partner who's a novelist. Like, that's just absolutely awesome. So have a great night or morning wherever you're at in the world watching this. See you soon, and stay tuned. Next Friday is going to be some pretty awesome stuff. Our next live stream is Friday night, 10 p.m. Eastern. Can't wait. Thank you. I will definitely be sending you a link, Alex. No worries. And let's see. Cade, yes, comics are like a movie in every issue. 100%. Totally agree. Let's see. Who else did I not get to say hi to? My Thought, The Exempt, welcome. Never seen you here before. Make sure you subscribe and even join if you want to. Cade, thanks for coming. Max Comics, thank you so much. Yes, you did get a wrench, Cade. I figured if there's anyone who can moderate these comments, it's going to be the man, the myth, the Sonic legend. None other than the Scooby-Doo himself. VK, good to see you, buddy. Thank you for coming and watching. Yes, force push that like button. And if you're just now joining us, please make sure that you go back and check out that replay. Thanks for watching. Have a great night or morning. And as always, hashtag loungers assemble. Hashtag stay nerdy comic fam. See you soon.
I have me on the record saying to you, take a chill pill. Okay?
I don't need to take a chill pill.
Here, right there. Down the hatch.
I really don't want to take the chill pill.
Attaboy. Good. Now, chill.
Okay.